Good afternoon, dear participants. Let me introduce you the presentation on the paper where we performed the factor analysis of the impact of a wind power plant on bats. This research was based on the index of their activity and dynamics of species diversity. The organization and implementation of monitoring of bats' existence conditions in technogenic areas is important and urgent due to the complexity of the instrumental study and legal requirements for estimation of potential risk factors for the ecology. Researchers of bats on the territories of wind parks are forced to rely on international practices due to the lack of the methodological standards for collecting and analyzing the data. The main goal of the research was to study the vocal activity of bats in order to find out changes in the ecological state of animal populations potentially occurring because of the construction and operation of the wind park, and to summarize basic requirements for studying the activity of bats for the needs of the project, which relates to the construction of a wind farm. The research area is located 17 kilometers west of Mariupol, which is in Donetsk region in Ukraine. It covers the entire territory of the plant project together with the power transmission line. You see the characteristics of bat detector vantage points on the left of the slide. Here you can see the methods of gathering the data. They are ultrasound detection in separate vantage points, ultrasound detection on transets, ultrasound detection at a stationary vantage point throughout the night. One of the indicators of animal behavior is the activity index, which characterizes the theoretical possibility of registering bats over a period of time. Such calculations make it possible to characterize the periods of minimum and maximum activity of bats for further action and measurements for the management of natural environmental complexes. You can see the description for each element of the following formula on the slide. During our study, we received the following amount of signals, 190 and 173 signals in 2019 and 2020 respectively. The figure shows how the values of the activity index changes at separate vantage points. Some points showed the substantial activity. For example, the vantage point 19 over here near the village of Yalta. In our opinion, such a relatively high activity of animals is associated with the close location of the water area and settlements where bats have the opportunity to rest and forage in the lighted areas. As we can see from the following table, the activity of animal depending on the phenological phase of their annual cycle ranged from 0 signals per hour up to almost 11 signals per hour. Such values can be explained by weather conditions. According to our studies, the most dangerous period for bats is August and the first half of September. It is during that period that measurements are needed to minimize the negative impact of wind turbines on bats. We also estimated the species diversity of bats on the research territory, which is characterized by at least 10 species that belong to 6 taxonomic ranks. You can see the distribution on the following slide. None of them is being classified as an endangered species. To obtain more specific information on the territorial distribution of bats in the project area, we use the kernel density method for point objects. The result of applying this technique is the construction of zones of increased activity of bats, both in certain periods and for all observation seasons on a cartographical basis. Such zoning allows to identify places of potential risks for bats. We can see that on color schemes, and to provide appropriate recommendations on environmental management and minimization of impact. Based on our study, we created the list of impact factors for bats inhabitants in the research area. We divided them into 3 groups. First of them is the impacts caused by the construction, which includes emissions of harmful substances, deterrence by visual effects and noise, occupation of the territory by the working sites and equipment, loss of breeding sites, loss of individuals of certain species. Second group, impacts caused by equipment. This category includes long occupation of the territory and change of characteristics of the territory, deterrence by massed vertical structures, barrier effect and obstacles for flight. And the third group is impact caused by operation of the wind farm. It contains deterrence due to the rotor movement, flickering shadows, glare flight, additional development of the territory, disturbance due to the night illumination, collision with wind turbine generators. In conclusions, you can see the total number of registered voices during the research period under the number 1. Under number 2, you can see the dynamics of the index of bat activity depending on the research methodology. Forage and migratory behavior of bats, calculated by determining the index of their activity, shows the average values. The distribution of bats in the project area indicates the attraction of animals to settlements and open waters, while the wind farm area is less attractive to them. We estimated the species composition of bats. There are no species of the category endangered among the identified bats. So, based on our research, we state that the construction and operation of the wind power plant Wind Farm LLC at the level of objective forecast will not have a negative impact on the bat population of the study area. Thank you for your attention.